Hey folks, it's Tom, your Frugal Prepper. So today I'm just going to do a quick video on changing out this ignition lock cylinder. So after 24 years of owning this truck, I bought it new. It's a 2002. I bought it in 2001. I finally lost the key. It came loose, fell off my keychain. So when I bought this truck, they originally would have 2 keys with the truck, but they couldn't find it at the last minute. So I'd already signed all the paperwork, was ready to go. They were ready to pick it up. They're like, we can't find the other key right now. Here's this one. We'll get the other one for you, or we'll make one. We'll make it right. Should have got it in writing. It was plain for it in Centerville. So I went back later, like a couple weeks later, to check on my key, and the salesman had quit. And since it wasn't on the paperwork, they weren't making me another key. So I never did get a second key for this, and I finally lost my original key. Now what I did is I looked it up in Hollander. I pulled this out of a Lincoln Navigator. It interchanges. It has another key and another ignition lock cylinder. The thing is, this little pin has to be punched out. You could drill it out too, but it's rounded, so it's hard to drill. So we're just going to punch it out with a punch. So I have a punch and a screwdriver and a hammer down here, and we're going to take this column apart. What you have to do, this hole right here is what you use to push up with the screwdriver to get the ignition lock cylinder out if you have the key. And then these are the screw holes. So we're going to take these screws out and take this bottom cover off so we can see that pin and get up in there with a hammer. Alright, so we got to just get the screws out of this guy. That punch might be too big a one. I might have to go get me a smaller one. Alright, I got it out. I just had to kind of pull down on that a little bit and wiggle this piece back and forth, and it came out. So now you can see right there is the pin that we have to knock out. And I think this punch is going to be a little too big. Yeah, so let me go find a smaller punch, and then we'll hammer that one up. Trying to make sure you guys can see. But here I got my little Harbor Freight punch. We're going to just put that over the hole and give this a couple of good whacks. I have to whack it some more. And it's out. So now we just have to pull this ignition lock cylinder out of here and give it a little prying action. That took off the plastic piece. That's great. I finally got it out. I kind of broke it all up and mangled it, but once I got it out, I see that this pin really didn't drill. I just drilled beside it. So the final thing I did was I stuck my punch up in this hole where I drilled the big hole, and then I pried it like that, and that started it on its way out. So I was trying to drive a bolt down in the middle of this so that I could use a slide hammer with it. Then the bolt snapped off after it engaged the starter. It wouldn't start because it didn't have a programmed key, so it wouldn't start, but the starter kept cranking. So I had to grab my wire cutters real quick. I went ahead and cut the negative battery cable right here, so I'll have to put all of this back together. It's not acting like it wants to come apart. In there. It looks like I got some parts broken off in there. In the ignition switch. That part on the end broke off when I pried it out. So now I gotta get that part out. Great. Alright, so I use my little fine needle nose right here. Reach down in there and get this little part right here out of the ignition. Slid the new lock in. It locked in place. It turns the ignition. Let me show you here. It turns the ignition. So now I just have to get the battery cable fixed and get her programmed. Alright, so I got my battery cable all back on here. Just strip those wires down with a razor knife, stick them on there, tighten them up with a good old-fashioned 7/16. So it won't start. So now we gotta get the scan tool out, and I'll show you how that works. So I have my little launch diag gun. I'm booting that up. We'll go ahead and plug this into the OBD2 port down here. Alright, that's plugged in. We'll go ahead and turn our ignition to the on position. Hopefully I have enough battery to program this. Make sure my air conditioning's off, headlights are off. Okay. So we'll go ahead and open the app for the launch. Then we're gonna hit diagnose. And it's a Ford. We'll tell it to automatically search based on the VIN. Yes, okay. Well, let me turn this off. There we go. Get that blower motor off. We don't want to run the battery down because Fords are real funny. I'll have to get my battery maintainer out. They will not program a key if the voltage gets low. In fact, sometimes even when the battery voltage is fine, they still won't program a key, and you have to put a battery maintainer on there and crank it up to about 14 volts. So we'll see what happens here. And just go to special functions under that main menu. Okay, it's a body. There we go. Security. And passive anti-theft system. This top one is what we want. So it's going to tell you that you're going to have 2 keys. So on a Ford, if you clear the existing keys, you have to have 2 keys to program it. This only has 2 keys programmed in it from the dealer originally. So what I can do is do an add a key. Take 10 minutes, yes. And so now we get to wait 10 minutes and hope the battery holds out. If it doesn't, we'll get the battery maintainer out, and I'll be back after 10 minutes. Alright, so Now it tells us security access is granted, so we say okay to that. Program additional keys. So you don't want to do the erase and program if you only have one key. So what you want to do is go ahead and program additional ignition keys. And this will tell you some stuff. There should now be a unprogrammed PATS key in the ignition. Turning off the ignition could result in losing security access. So don't turn off the ignition. If the security access is lost, change the unprogrammed key. The process does not erase existing keys. So we say okay. Place an open program key into the ignition. Okay. Operation succeeded. Do you want to program another key? No. So now we should be able to turn it off, turn it back on, and she runs. Yay! I got my truck back. All right. So now I will be able to drive my truck and move firewood and do stuff again. All right. So as you can see with this scan tool, it's really easy just to add an additional key. You can do this with the Ford IDS software, with your Ford module or another JBox. You can do it with, I don't know if you can program a key with FJDS. I think you can. And I used to use my clone Ford module, so I call it an ICM or something, as a Motorcraft clone module, and use my IDS to do this, but it's just so much faster with the scan tool, so I normally do them with that. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. This is Tom, your Frugal Prepper.